Hello everybody. I've been getting a lot of requests to do a video on the mods that I did to my car, and basically which ones I recommend, which ones I don't recommend, how I like them. So I got a list over here, probably about 15 different mods that I did to my car, and I'm going to go through them one by one. I'm going to give it a rating on 1 to 10, 1 being low scale, 10 being a high rating if I liked it a lot and if I recommend it, and we'll go from there. So the first mod I'm going to go over is the Armytrix Exhaust, which is the first mod that I actually put on my car. Funny story, I didn't even have my car when I ordered the Armytrix. It was always an exhaust that I wanted forever. I like how you could close the valves, make it super quiet, sound like a stock car. Then when you open it, of course it comes like a straight pipe and it opens it up a lot, makes it really loud. Sounds great. I've had it on the car for about 30,000 miles, no issues. It's good quality build. So for that, I would give it, I'd say like an 8 out of 10. Only because it was very expensive. I think it was about $3,000 exhaust system. Mind you, usually get your money back with these anyway, so when I sell it, or if you purchase it and sell it, you'll get your money back as well. But I think it's a great mod. I like having the convenience, like I said, if I want to turn off the valves in the morning, if I'm going to work, I don't want to be too loud, or if it's late at night, want to avoid cop trouble, just turn it off. So yeah, I highly recommend the Armytrix Exhaust. I love it so far, and I'm sure you would too. The second mod I'm going to go over is the VRSF Downpipe, which of course goes with the exhaust. I got the Catless downpipe, and I would say that really opened up the exhaust the most. So when I put the Armytrix exhaust, it definitely made a nice big difference when I opened up the valve, but it was just way too restricted with the factory cats. So I mean, even if you go with like a high flow cat downpipe, it'll probably still open it up a lot, give it a nice sound, give it that extra horsepower if you want to go stage 2. But personally myself, I went with the Catless downpipe, and for the price, I think it was like $250. You really can't go wrong with that. The only thing is, of course, you need to tune just to avoid the check engine lights, and that's where you're going to gain most of the power anyways. But for rating from 1 to 10, I would give the VRSF downpipe a solid 9. Highly recommend it. Great product, great sound, and can't go wrong with it. So the next mod I'm going to go over is the first, I guess, power mod that I really did, which was the JP Plus. JP Plus is basically like the simplest thing you can do to your engine, the easiest. Like, you don't even have to know how to work on your car. You could literally just do it within 5 minutes. You basically connect it to a boost sensor, and there's a little toggle in the middle where you could turn it left or right, depending on how much boost you want to add. So I believe it ranges anywhere from half a pound up to 4 pounds of boost. Only problem is, once you start going above like 2-3 pounds of boost, it's gonna feel a little hesitant, because when you're only adding boost to the car and you're not changing the timing or anything else within the car, engine's not gonna be too happy with it. It's not gonna be as smooth as a power band. You might get a little bit of a throttle closure, and it was about $200. So all said and done, I would give it a rating of maybe 4, just because of the the convenience it provides, how easily you can take it out. If you're not looking to do anything like crazy to your car, you just want a little bit of extra kick to it, it's not a bad mod. But as you start modding these cars, you're gonna realize it's like a drug. You always want more and more power. So if I could redo it, I wouldn't get that again. I wouldn't purchase it. So I don't really recommend that mod. So the next mod I'm going to be going over is the Racechip piggyback tune. I didn't really like that one either, especially for the money. So I got the highest model, which I believe is called the GTS Black. Decided to go with that one, and the way it works is it basically has 7 different maps. 1 being the least powerful, going up to 7, which is the most powerful. They claim on their website, I don't know, I think 70-80 horsepower difference, and they claim that it's specifically tuned for the 340 or the B58 engine. But when you start driving it, like let's say you start going to map 4, map 5, you start getting into the higher powered maps, you're going to notice it's very hesitant, a lot of throttle closures. The car just does not perform well with it. Gives it a little more power, but it just feels like crap, to be honest. So especially for the price, when you could buy OTS map from BM3, from MHD or MG Flasher for probably $100, $200 cheaper, even more, definitely would not suggest getting the Racechip, and I would just say go straight for the MHD or any kind of flash. It's way better. You'll get your money's worth. You'll get more power, and it's going to feel way smoother with a power band. So for the Racechip, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to give that like a 2. Definitely don't recommend buying it. So the next thing I think did to my car was I went with boot mod BM3, and I was just very sick of the Racechip. I didn't like it at all, so decided to take that out, sell it, go with the boot mod, and night and day difference. So with the flash, it's going to be a very smooth power band. It's going to be even more power. There's so many different options that you can customize, like the burble tuning, the cooling, different, I believe it's like torque restrictions and different gears. There's so many things that you could adjust. You could even take away the cold start, which was great, because like me, I wake up early in the morning to go to work. Not now during COVID, but for the most part, and I couldn't take the cold starts anymore. It was just way too loud. So went with the boot mod. Was very, very happy with it, and I highly suggest it. So on a scale or rating of 1 to 10, I would give a flash tune in general, that being MHD, MG Flasher, or boot mod, all of them I would give a solid 8 out of 10. So like I said, the power's like a drug. You always want more and more. Coming from the stage 2 boot mod, I wanted to up it to the stage 2 plus, I believe, where you could put the ethanol maps, the 95 or race octane, or whatever the case is. So I upgraded my fuel pump to the TU pump. TU pump is it's a great mod for the price for what you're getting. If you want to stick with your stock turbo and try to get the most power out of that, you can't go wrong with the TU pump. It's going to be your cheapest option out there, easy to install. And when I say TU pump, I mean from the B58 TU engine. So you'll find those in the 2019 or above, like M340s, M240s. You're going to find it in the newer Supras, the 890, 891. And that's going to allow you, like I said, to start using ethanol mixes to really max out your stock turbo if you're not looking to upgrade turbos. On a scale rating from 1 to 10, I would give the TU pump I'd say about a 6 or 7 out of 10. Let's say 6 out of 10. That because, like I said, it's going to give you the most for your stock turbo, but if you decide to upgrade turbos, you're really not going to get too much use out of it. That's when you really have to start going to Door Stage 2 or the Spool FX180, which is what I have. So yeah, 6 out of 10. So I would recommend it, like I said, if you're really looking to stay with your stock turbo. So the next mod I'm going to be talking about are the cold air intakes that I went with. The first one I purchased was the agency power intake, and really liked it. Gave it a lot of sound. You really heard that turbo spooling, and it just looked really good too. I believe they're around 250, maybe closer to 300 if I'm not mistaken. But it was definitely a great mod. As far as performance, I mean, they say the stock intakes and thin intakes perform a little better just due to their closed nature, so you're not really absorbing too much heat from the engine. But I mean, I really don't care about that 3-4 horsepower difference. I'd rather have that sound from the open cone intake, like the agency power, and then I actually upgraded to the CTS intake, which sounds more or less similar. It might be a little louder. Some people actually think I have a blow-off valve, but when in reality it's just the CTS intake making all that noise. Looks really good too, as you've probably seen in my car before. Either one of those intakes, I would give it an 8 out of 10 rating. Really like them. I highly recommend them. So next thing, I'm gonna go into suspension. So I made a huge mistake of only purchasing springs first without any struts, or not just getting coilovers to begin with. when you purchase springs only on the standard suspension, not the sport suspension, you're going to notice it's going to be extremely bouncy. So when I previously purchased H&R springs and I put them on my S4 or S5, it gave it a nice firm, stiff ride, which I liked. So that's what I was thinking it was going to happen, the same thing with this car. But in fact, like I said, it just turned the car into a really, really bouncy ride. So I actually had to pay double for installation because a month later I added the B8, the Bilsten B8 struts. That really fixed up the suspension a lot. So it turned into a nice firm ride, definitely not too bouncy at all, and it just felt good. Not too bad for the price either, besides, you know, paying double installations for first the springs and the struts. But all in all, if I would redo the suspension, I would either just go with the springs and the struts from the beginning, so the H&R Sport springs, the B8 struts, put them together, or what I really recommend is just going with the coilovers from the beginning. So nice pair of maybe H&R coilovers, the Bilsten coilovers. Definitely can't go wrong with those, and I think you're gonna get your money's worth out of it. It's gonna feel way better. But like I said, if you want to save a little bit of money too, you could always just go with the springs and the struts, but don't ever just do the springs. So as a pair of the H&R springs and the B8 struts, I would give it a rating of probably an 8 out of 10 as well. Like I said, I would want it a little bit firmer, and that's probably where you're going to get from the coilovers, but nevertheless, it still feels really good. So now I'm going to actually get into the different tuning platforms. The three main ones that, I mean, there might be another one, I don't think so, but three main ones that I usually go with are either BM3, Boot Mod, MHD, or MG Flasher. I actually tried them all out. Like an idiot, I just went with all platforms. But from what I noticed, they're very, very identical. So the OTS maps, you're really not going to get too big of a difference between the three of them. They each offered, like, you know, the same types of different options in regards to adjusting burbles, cooling, that kind of stuff. But as far as the power, they pretty much all feel very similar. As far as the monitoring of the, you know, like when you're monitoring the timing corrections, the boost, the wastegate duty cycle, etc., I just like the table on the MHD the best. For me, it's the easiest to read. But from what I heard, tuners prefer MG Flasher just because there's a few more parameters that they can look at, and it's a little easier for them. So that's actually what I'm running at the moment, MG Flasher. But I'm custom tuned by David Shoup, which is a great tuner. I highly, highly recommend him. I give him a 10 out of 10. But as far as, like I said, the three different platforms, I'd still give him a 10 out of 10. It's just easy to use. Technology just came so far nowadays with tuning. I remember it taking like 45 minutes when I would get a tune with my older cars, and then you couldn't do it through your phone, and you have to get it through the computer, and it was a pain in the ass. But nowadays, way easier, and they're all really good. I feel like you can't go too wrong with either one of them. And it also depends if you're looking to get a custom tune. Some custom tuners work with one platform, some custom tuners work with another, some work with all of them. So it's kind of up to your decision if you want to go with a different custom tuner based off that platform, etc. Like I said, I give them a 10 out of 10 for each, and I highly recommend them. Next thing I'm going to be talking about is the Spool FX180 pump, the high pressure fuel pump. I was actually originally going to go with door stage 2, but I was keeping an eye on them for like 3 or 4 months, and they just never got back in stock. So just being impatient the way I am, I went with the Spool FX180, and I'm actually kind of happy I went with them. So I've heard some bad things about their customer service, saying it's not too good, their pump's not being good, but I mean, I've had a great experience with them so far. Two things I have to say. One, the fuel line, the hard rail fuel line, they don't come with their own in their kit. You have to actually use the one that comes with your stock setup, your stock high pressure fuel pump. And in order to fit it onto the FX180 or even the FX150, you have to bend that line into place for it to fit. Let me tell you, it's not easy bending that line. So one complaint I have, like I said, is it should really come with their own hard line for the fuel rail, the way that door stage 2 does. So when you get a door stage 2 pump, it comes with the pump that connects to the low pressure fuel pump, and it comes with their own high pressure fuel pump line, so it makes the install way easier. It was definitely hard bending that rail into place, but I mean, after it was all done, the pump's been working great. I did have a minor leakage coming from one of the threads, and I sent it back to Spool. Within a week, they sent me a brand new one. So I mean, like I said, their service is phenomenal. I don't know why I heard so many bad things about it, but I highly recommend Spool, and especially if they come out with their own fuel lines, which I think they said it's in the works. Yeah, I will give it a solid 8 out of 10 for the Spool pump. Next thing I'm going to be talking about is the Vargas GC Turbo, which is the upgraded turbo I have at the moment. Great turbo. So if you're looking for something, the next stage of you know, going above stock turbo, but you don't want to go too crazy with a big turbo kit like Big Boost or Dock Race, I think Vargas does a great job. I haven't dynoed the car yet, but I mean, you should be able to squeeze about 580, 590 wheel horsepower comfortably. Of course, with the right pump as well. So I have the, like I said, the Spool pump, but it spools like a stock turbo, so there's not really any lag. It gives you that top end power, and it's just a really great turbo for the price. So I believe I got it on sale. It was a Black Friday sale last year for, I think it was about $1,400, and that was with the install kit, like the gaskets, the what's called, the little O-rings, etc. But yeah, I would give the Vargas Turbo, like I said, if your power goals are under 600 wheel horsepower, I would give it a solid 9 out of 10. It's just been a great turbo. They get a lot of bad rep too, and I think that mostly comes from Tony, which I think is the owner of the company. But as far as their products, speaking for the GC, it's just a really great product. I don't know too much about the GC Plus. I know a couple of them blew. One being Andre, which was one stock F30, and he was, I guess, told to push the turbo to the limits. He was using one of the beta turbos, so, and he was running, I think, way over 30 pounds of boost. So I mean, it was kind of expected. Other than that, I haven't heard much about the Vargas GC Plus, so I can't speak for that. Like I said, again, the GC, 9 out of 10. Next thing I'm going to go over is the clutch. So of course, as you can see, I have a 6-speed manual, and the stock clutch isn't really going to handle too much power. All different people experience slipping at different stages. So I experienced it, I think, when I started going into my custom tune, when I was running a custom E50 tune on my stock turbo. I started feeling a slip a little bit, so I decided it was time to upgrade. I went with the 550i or the 335 IS clutch, which is an OEM BMW clutch, but it's rated to hold way more torque than the stock clutch on the F30s, on the 340s. So I went with that. I think I spent about like $290 for that clutch, which really wasn't bad at all. I got a FCP Euro, and it's been holding up really well. Feels really good. Best bang for your buck, in my opinion. Otherwise, if you want to really upgrade it, you're going to start spending closer to probably $1,000 plus just for the clutch, and then you got to get the flywheel too if you get a single flywheel. The 335 IS clutch actually fits onto this dual flywheel, so you don't have to worry about that. A couple other things I did with the clutch were, it's a little, I believe it's called a dead stop or a bump stop. It's a little rubber grommets that you put under the clutch, so it eliminates that dead space when you're driving. That was the best $10 I ever spent in my life. Works really well, and it engages right away. You don't have to worry about all that dead space. I also did the clutch delay valve delete, which really helped the shifting too. So between the 550i clutch, which I give a rating 9 out of 10, the little bump stop 10 out of 10, and the clutch delay valve, which is a pretty simple job, I give that an 8 out of 10. All good mods that I did, and I highly recommend it if you have a 6-speed manual B58. So next I'm going to be talking about the VRSF Chargepipe. It's not really needed with our cars. I think even the stock one would be good for my Vargas GC Turbo. haven't heard of any really breaking on the B58 engines. It was more of a problem with the N55s, the N54s. They would always break, but I just got one for peace of mind. It was pretty cheap too, the VRSF Chargepipe. I think it was like maybe 2 something, 230, 240. So like I said, for peace of mind, I would recommend getting it. Not really needed, but I just like to have some peace of mind. So I would give it, let's say 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, because like I said, it's not really needed, but I like it. So the last thing we're going to be talking about is the BMS strut brace. So it's a little strut brace that drills onto the rear strut brace of the car and the chassis. It's a little metal piece, drill it on, and it kind of stiffens up the rear a little bit. So for launching, there's not too much bounce when you launch the car. And like I said, I felt a little bit of a difference. It tightened it up a little bit. Is it needed? Maybe not, but I would still give it maybe a 6 out of 10 rating, and I would still recommend it. I liked it. Pretty cheap upgrade too. I think it was about 150, 170, so not too bad, but yeah, I would get it. So yeah, that's all the mods I did to my car. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you want to see next. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, comment in the video what you want to see next, what you like about my videos, what you don't, and I'll see you guys next time.